Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 157 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I am a speaker and author of the book From Letters to Leaders, Creating Impact on Your College Campus and Beyond. Fun fact, I went to school at the University of Buffalo because my best friend Scott was already having a good time there as a freshman while I was completing my senior year at high school. I apply, I got in, and I committed to UB. Then I find out a week before my freshman year that Scott had failed out of school because he was working as a security guard at night and he couldn't wake up for his classes. Scott is now chief of police right now, and I'm here hosting the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. So read that, read into that as you will. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together, as well as college students. Our guest today believes that diversity cannot be a goal because diversity already exists. As long as we take the actual definition of diversity and broaden it beyond traditional uses. Instead, inclusion has to be a goal because that takes cultivation, that takes a certain amount of vulnerability, that takes curiosity, and most of all, honesty. Our guest today also believes that shifting our thinking from diversity to intersectional inclusivity is one of the hardest things we're ever going to do, but it's the only way that we have to save the world. Today we have with us Dr. Kristen Nielsen Donnelly. Abbey Research was founded by Dr. Donnelly in 2015. Kristen is a social science researcher with over 2 decades of experience. Dr. Donnelly is also a trained social worker with experience working in nonprofits and faith communities as well. After completing her PhD, Dr. Donnelly realized that her passion for serving organizations and her skills as a researcher complemented what Abbey Research is doing today, and that's when ultimately this organization was born. So I'm super excited to find out more about Abbey Research today. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This is such a privilege.
Well, hey, it's my pleasure. Anytime we have somebody with as much great information to share with our audience as you do, hey, you are welcome on the show anytime. You name the date, the place, I am there. I'm ready. So, all right, so let's tell our audience a little bit more about your background. You got your Master of Social Work from Baylor University in Texas. What made Baylor the right choice for you?
Oh, gracious. Well, I started there through the seminary, actually, and I was recruited by the then director of recruitment, who was a friend at the time, and they were looking to expand their student reach beyond Texas and beyond Baptists. And I was neither Texan nor a Baptist. And so they asked if I'd consider coming. I said, for sure. Why not? Got down there on a preview weekend, felt right. Then started the seminary journey, and a year into my seminary journey, ended up spending 2 weeks in Kenya and a couple days in Rwanda. Wow. As part of Baylor's commitment to provide international experiences to all of its students, which was a huge part of their culture then. We're talking around 15 years ago, so can't say if it still is, but in 2006, it definitely was. And when I got there, realized that I had to do something besides book knowledge. I had to figure out a way to put the book knowledge I was getting into my hands. And Baylor then and now still has a dual degree program with the Master's of Divinity and a Master's of Social Work, where you get both degrees in a span of 4 years. And one is a 3-year program and one's a 2-year program. So it's really nice to combine them. So that was it. Essentially, somebody that I trusted said, I think you may fit here. Moved down there and will tell you that my 5 years in Texas is the most cross-cultural experience I've ever had. And yeah, am now forever a Baylor Bear.
That is an incredible experience. I love the international component of that. I mean, who wouldn't want to sign up for something like that? I mean, I'll go. Just tell me when.
It was a great thing that they were able to do. And like I said, I believe they still do it. But yeah, I think we all have to see the world.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I have a couple of kids Myself, one is going to be heading into her sophomore year, and then my son is going to be heading into his junior year of high school. And so these are the types of things they're looking for. They want that international exposure. So, my daughter's actually in the IB program because she wants that international exposure. So I think it sounds like a wonderful experience at Baylor University. I'm going to have to go and check that out now because it could be a really good, place, good landing spot. Now, you're the founder of Abbey Research. So tell our listeners a bit more about Abbey Research. What do you do there, and who are your typical clients?
Fantastic and fun question for us to answer. So Abbey Research is essentially, very, very fundamentally, it's me and my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I founded it a little bit before her, before she was able to join me. We both met doing our PhD programs in Northern Ireland. And something that my family has always deeply believed is that curiosity is the superpower to business success, and that most people aren't actually trained in how to be curious. And our formal education system, to be completely honest, beats curiosity out of kids a lot, especially with the standardized testing routine. And I have found that, the fundamental basis of a PhD is, I wonder why? And then you spend a number of years answering that question. My father's been in business for, at this point now, 30 years, and is in the process of kind of retiring, not really, because entrepreneurs never retire, but he's passed the business on to my brother and myself. And what we have discovered and learned as we talk to business owners and nonprofit directors and ministers and rabbis and everybody who works with people anywhere on the planet. And one of the secret superpowers is curiosity. Can you look around the world and wonder? And how do you harness that wonder for whatever your mission is? So that's what Abbey Research does. We help people harness their wonder. We are empathy educators who spend a lot of our time helping people see the world through somebody else's eyes. We do this through YouTube videos and newsletters and conversations. Our ideal client, in a way, our typical client, is anybody who knows there's a different way to be human and isn't quite sure how to get there. We offer keynotes and workshops and corporate retreats and kind of all of that stuff that a lot of speakers do. I have the privilege of taking a TEDx stage not long ago, and I'm hoping to take more. And really what we just seek to do is help people be human just a little bit differently.
I love it. That sounds absolutely incredible. Now, you mentioned your TEDx talk, and your TEDx talk is on how tolerance flattens diversity. Can you expand on that a little bit for our audience?
I'd be delighted to. I grew up in the 90s where where tolerance was the buzzword, right? Like tolerance is what we were taught to do. It was on all the bumper stickers. It was so exciting. But to me, and from a social science definition as well, tolerance just kind of means you are alive because I cannot kill you. And that doesn't really do anything to build relationships. So for me, tolerance is a passive entity. It just acknowledges someone's existence and then that's it. Whereas diversity is this reality that all of us live in, where every human being's diverse. We all carry different realities and stories and worldviews and experiences and scars and joys and everything within us. So we are diverse entities. Tolerance says that you're not a diverse entity. You are that thing that I have to tolerate. You are that one category I see. You are that thing that I don't really want to engage with. And what I contend is that we have to engage on some level with everybody a little. Now, that doesn't mean that you get along with people. That doesn't mean that you do relationship with everybody. That doesn't mean that everybody wants to do relationship with you. It just means that on some level, you engage with the idea that that person is a human being and not that thing that you identified them as. And how can you, in your daily life and the life of your organization and the life of your family, cultivate an environment where you are used to being curious about other people? And you create space in your life and in your practice to answer that curiosity and to allow them to answer their curiosity about you. Again, I am not proposing that you deep relationship with somebody who is emotionally harmful to you. Yeah. But I think far too often we just allow other people to exist. And then that just allows us to continue to be siloed in ways that doesn't encourage relationship. And there's scientifically, like, we can't exist alone. Like, none of us are islands. All of us do better together. And so tolerance is the antithesis of that. And so when I say it flattens diversity, it turns you into a thing, a piece of you, pretending that it's the entire entity of you, and that is not the case.
Mm-hmm. I hope we can do more in terms of curiosity and getting to know other people, because I mean, certainly when you look at politics today, when you look at the elections that have happened, within recent memory anyway, I mean, it does seem that we're all in these silos and we're not curious about other people and their thoughts. Rather, we just write them off as the opposite of whatever we are. And that's where the conversation ends. And we've literally kicked them out of Facebook friendships or, whatever, even though we've known this person maybe our entire lives. But now we're no longer listening to them because we've kicked them off of our Facebook friends list and we have no idea what they think. And that curiosity is now gone.
And it's very difficult because a lot of the ideas that people are being very loud about right now are very hurtful and harmful to other people in a variety of ways. And the way that we are taught through the media, to be completely honest, it's a big part of it, to get our point across is to just be the loudest voice in the room. And we're not educated in how to investigate or how to listen. God, we're not educated in how to listen. And we just wait for someone else to stop talking. We can't be in a relationship with anybody whose entire point of that relationship with you is to get their point across the minute you shut up. Like, that is just not possible. It's not how relationships work. And so that's part of also what I mean, is that we have to learn how to be comfortable in our own beliefs. This is such a part of a bigger conversation, but one of the things I always teach students when I get a chance to teach them is that you have to know what your non-negotiables are. Everybody's got things they won't bend on, but there is so much more in your life that you're willing to bend on than you give yourself credit for. And get used to being wrong. Get used to saying, I don't know. Get used to saying, that's an interesting point. Let me think about that. Get used to saying, you know what, that's something I'm not going to bend on, but that doesn't mean I can't love you. Or that's something I'm not going to bend on and you're not going to bend on that. We've had a great conversation. I wish you all the best in the rest of your life. May we never cross paths again. Those are all valid responses, but not doing any work and making assumptions about somebody based on a Facebook status or a car they drive or a bumper sticker they have or a church they go to or the God they worship. All that does is eliminate humanity from your life. And all that does is make your life less rich.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. Let's talk about emotional intelligence, because that's also something that, you're very familiar with. What is emotional intelligence and why does it matter to being human?
Oh gosh, what isn't emotional intelligence is the easier question. So EQ, it's shortened to, like, this is such a buzzword in corporate America now, but what it boils down to is this: do you know who you are and do you know who other people are? Can, in a conversation or in a leadership role or I find this especially true for college students who are trying to do the leadership thing on campus. Can you hold who you are, your worldviews, your history, your opinions in tension with other people's opinions, worldviews, histories, and can you hold those things in tension? Can you understand that both of those things may be true at once? Because something that happens very often, especially with folks who haven't done any inner work to know who they are, is that they'll get in a fight with somebody and they have no idea why they're so angry. They have no idea why they're going off the handle. They have no idea why they're so defensive about something. They have no idea, because they haven't realized that thing that person just said is this deep trauma from 4th grade. Or they don't even recognize it as that's hitting up against a really big part of my faith system, or that's fundamentally part of how I see human. Because they haven't done that inner work, they don't know how to respond when it's attacked in their mind, and they treat it like it's an attack, and their fight or flight kicks in, and all of a sudden we're in a fight when really it could just be a conversation. So emotional intelligence is the ability to hold all of those things. So traditional intelligence is measured frequently by how quickly you can process information and how easily you can see patterns, either in words or numbers. Emotional intelligence is measured in how well you know yourself, which is a continual process of doing continual work, and how open you are to holding both your truth and other truth at the same time.
Perfect explanation. That is excellent. Now, you mentioned before that you're a 2nd-generation family business owner. So what did that teach you about empathy?
I laugh because, again, like, what didn't it teach me? So my father bought the company that I now co-own with my brother when I was 7. And so the same way that a lot of family kids joke, but like we started violating child labor laws shortly thereafter. And growing up in it and kind of figuring it out, there's two components to this question. And the first is that we've always been an intentional second chance employer. So my dad bought the company with his business partner that he did because it was a manufacturing firm that you didn't need any special training to manufacture the things. If you showed up sober every day and on time, we could find work for you. And that's been one of the driving portions. And so from a very young age, where most of my very sheltered suburban counterparts, were playing soccer and doing things, and that was great, and everybody had a good childhood on that front. I was also learning what it meant for somebody to be in long-term recovery, what the regulations were around being on parole, why people landed in prison. Either they made choices for themselves or choices were made for them. And so the number of people that have crossed our paths professionally being in this business has taught me an amazing amount of empathy, that frequently, like I said, people have decisions made for them. And the narrative that we spend in America is that everybody can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And what my life has constantly taught me is that that's physically not possible, because for a lot of people, we cut off their feet. So it's not like they even have straps to pull. And so how does that work? But then also, we've done an intentional ownership transition since about 2016. My dad had a health event that told us that it was time to be serious about this. And so as we had all of these conversations, and I would come in with my bright newfangled millennial ideas, and my dad would be sitting there with 30 years of corporate business experience. And I had to so often stop and say, wait, I may not love how he's saying it. I may not love the words he's using, but what he's saying is something I really need to pay attention to, and I really need to sit with before I reject it outright. And most of the time I didn't. Most of the time I ended up agreeing with him once I got past my knee-jerk daughter, I have to be right power struggle that a lot of older children go through, especially. But I work every day with two of the men who know me both the best and not at all in that way that families do. Like my brother holds pieces of me that nobody else does. And we have to do leadership life together every single day. And that is a perpetual discipline in empathetic action.
So interesting. I'm a lifetime entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and now I've got this company, Greek University. We have 16 speakers, and they're out there speaking all across the country on college campuses. And, my kids, they look at the business, and I think it's definitely interesting to them. They haven't had the opportunity to be in a fraternity or sorority, so that part is a little bit foreign, although they've been around it. And they see the benefit of being in a connected network, such as a fraternity or sorority, because all of my friends are in fraternities and sororities. And so they get that. They see who's around and how we know each other. And so it's interesting, hearing your experience with your family-owned business, because I think at some point, maybe they're going to want to be a part of the business, but it's hard to say. I mean, they're before college and things change, and we'll see how everything shakes out. But I think it would be really rewarding to know that the company has legs and that it's going to outlive me and the mission is going to continue. I think that's a really important thing for me as a business owner. I want it to have legs. I always, I certainly believe that the fraternity and sorority system is absolutely going to outlive me. And I believe in the benefits of that system. I believe it's the best leadership experience on a college campus. And so, I hope that that continues, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But good for you for making it work, working across, I'm sure, some generational differences between you and your dad. Yeah. I'm sure there's many, but good for you for sticking it out and making it work. I think that's just an amazing thing. And it's just talking about empathy. I kind of wanted to get your insight on this, because as you know, I'm sure you read all of the high profile hazing cases, sexual assault cases that are happening on college campuses. So I'm wondering, how do we build empathy within college students to ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen anymore?
Oh gosh. Do we have another 6 to 7 hours? I mean, the quick answer. So yes, of course, I'm very familiar with sexual assault on college campuses. I'm a Baylor graduate. And so I just want to get that out there. I followed that case very closely.
Sure.
Those cases very closely. I have very strong opinions on how the university handled them. The very first thing that I would say is that we have to train both faculty, staff, and students that the first question they ask when somebody says that they were assaulted is never how much were they drinking and what were they wearing. And if we can create, there's so many students, especially on faith-based college campuses, that are really afraid to come forward because of the judgment that will come with their behavior. And that's on us. That's on the community. I don't believe in forbidding. I'll tell you right now, I went to a dry college campus. I went to a dry undergraduate, and I hid wine bottles in my ceiling. Like, they'll get around it. Like, it's not, I never abused it. I was never, whatever. But the fallacy that if we make a campus dry, students won't drink is hilarious.
Right.
And simply not true. And so what we can do instead is create safe environments for kids to make mistakes. And that's part of what higher education should be. And that should never include shame for the decisions that you made. No one is, very few people are motivated through shame to change behaviors. What they are motivated through is love and grace and the ability to make a different decision. And so the first thing I would say is we've got to strike, like, I understand that some Title IX investigations still include her level of inebriation or his level of inebriation or what they were wearing. And it's entirely possible that as part of the investigation that might be necessary. My guess is that it is not nearly as necessary as we pretend it is. And the other thing would be to have empathetic conversations about what masculinity and femininity are. I think we have, in so many ways, defined masculinity so narrowly for so many of these boys that they don't understand what it means to be a college man without a lot of the trappings of college masculinity that we have pretended are mandatory. So we haven't given them different ways to understand power. We haven't given them different ways to understand sexuality. We haven't given them different ways of understanding control or anything else. And this is not victim blaming in any way, but this is a reality that part of this problem is that we've done a disservice to our boys. We have taught girls forever. I was born in 1983, and the first time I was taught how not to be raped, I think I was 10. I have been being taught how not to get sexually assaulted for my entire life. My brother is 3 years behind me, and the only person that has ever taught him to flat out not rape somebody is my family. He's never sat through the classes that I've sat through. He's never had to think about a rape whistle or the other things that I was given around the country, around the world. I've gone to university in 2 different states and 2 different countries. And this is how we talk about sexual assault on college campuses around the world, is that it's always on the responsibility of the woman to not put herself in a position to do that. And all that does is continually create an environment where someone's at fault by innately who they are, instead of that the action was wrong. And I really, truly believe we have to get to the point where, first of all, people get a lot more comfortable with saying the word rape out loud, and we stop using euphemisms for it. But that, and a piece of this is comprehensive sexual health education and comprehensive consent education and understanding exactly what no means and when it means that and all those kind of things. But one of the first places we have to start is by teaching every child that everybody is a human being who deserves your respect. And that it's not flirting if he's pulling your hair on the playground. That's not flirting. It's not a lot of these other things that we've been telling kids forever. But if we can hold the humanity and not the behavior, I think things would change.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so interesting to me how you describe the 2 different worlds that our sons are growing up in versus what our daughters are growing up in. I remember clearly speaking about sexual assault prevention on a campus in the Northeast, in Massachusetts, if I need to be more specific. And I talked about sexual assault prevention, and I was literally walking through, like, this is what yes sounds like on this campus. Yeah. This is what no sounds like on this campus. And I'm giving like 20 different examples. And literally, I mean, you see like sorority women standing up and applauding this conversation because nobody has had this conversation with the students on this campus before they got there. And literally, I had a woman approach me after the presentation, and she was like, Mike, I'm so happy that you're here. First of all, it's amazing that you're a fraternity man and you're having this conversation with our students today. Like, that kind of blew her away because I think that changed her definition of what a fraternity man really is. And then she said, "You're the first person that's talked about a consent culture on our campus." Like, that blew her mind. And she said, "I'm a victim of a rape on this campus. And nobody has had this conversation until you got here." And it just blew me out of the water. I mean, I remember, just like, practically just crying on the spot because I knew how much it meant to her. And that is what fueled me to continue that fight. And so, it's just interesting, like, everything that you're talking about and how it relates to what it is that we do and what we choose to be passionate about. Fascinating conversation. Are there any books that you think should be mandatory reading for empathy building that maybe students can pick up to improve their skills in that area?
Well, if you haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird, you got to start there, because I think
Mhm.
that's the empathy, one of the American empathy scriptures. I am a huge fan of the book Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, especially for students in leadership capacities. I've been teaching it now for 3 semesters to my interns, and I cannot recommend it enough. And then the other thing I always say is pick the thing you don't know enough about and start there. So if you are a cisgendered heterosexual white guy, well, that may mean that you're not super up on race stuff, you're not super up on gender stuff, and you're not maybe super up on queer theology or queer life. You may be up on all of them, but you may not be. Pick one of those and find that, because we all need empathy builders. And the thing is that we all need different ones at different times. Like this past couple months ago, my business partner and I both realized that we had never been exposed to the history of Asian Americans in the United States after the Atlanta shootings. We're both, obviously, we have PhDs, we're highly educated, and we're, went to good high schools, and we had no idea what the Chinese Exclusion Act was until we taught ourselves. And so that was a major empathy blind spot for us. So we found some books. We found a really great documentary series that PBS put out, and learned so much about that. Because the thing with empathy education is that it's a posture. It's an ongoing commitment to yourself and to the planet. It's not something that you do once and tick a box, because it can't be, because you're always going to run up against something in somebody's life. If you're able-bodied, then you need to be reading voices and listening to voices in the disability movement. If you are neurotypical, you need to be listening to neuroatypical. If you are skinny, you need to be listening to fat activism. There's lots of intersections around what you do, but the basics, if you can't do anything else, the 2 that I would do are To Kill a Mockingbird and Dare to Lead.
That is excellent recommendations. I hope all the students that are listening right now pick up those 2 books. If you haven't read it already, pick them up right now. So why do you think people, and maybe we should be talking specifically about college students here, but why are people as a rule so exhausted?
Oh gosh, man. So it's a fantastic question. And the answer is that the United States wants you to be exhausted. So American culture is built on productivity as a measure of your worth as a person. And this has only gotten younger and younger and younger and younger as I've gotten older and older and older. I remember being gifted and talented, which is no one should ever be designated as such. It's so traumatizing. But I remember being in that, and I was kind of on the forefront of that. You had a 5-page CV to get into college. So I graduated high school in 2001, and that was still like, you had the well-rounded thing, but it was mostly for the Ivies and the uppers. Like, there was an understanding that if you got decent grades, you could still get into a good school somewhere in the country. And I feel like in the last 20 years, we've just kept accelerating that more and more and more. Like, to get into community college, you better have 45 pages of a CV. Like, we just keep going and going and going. And one of the reasons for that is that the American was founded by a group of people called the Puritans. And I know you're thinking, well, George Washington wasn't a Puritan. You are correct. But they were the first white folks to land and to establish an American culture. And their 3 fundamental beliefs that we still carry are that you are a good person if you work hard, resting is for after you die, and you have to do it all alone. Those are 3 fundamental core beliefs to who they were as people that we have then just carried on. America scores 95 out of 100 on the individuality scale. We just do not care about each other on a very societal, fundamental level. And that is baked into who we are. Also baked into who we are is to measure our worth by our productivity. and to do all of that. So, I mean, there's a joke going around the internet right now that if you call somebody in Europe during the summer, it'll say, I'm on vacation now until September. Somebody will get back to you in 2027, you know? And if you call somebody in America, it's like, well, I'm in kidney surgery right now. So if you just let the anesthesia wear off, I'll answer your email. And it's funny because it's painfully true.
Right.
And there's, you know, I've lived in a country that I love to very lovingly say Ireland is allergic to productivity. And in a lot of ways it is. Their priority is never productivity. Their priority is never getting everything done. If you are a prioritization hyper A type person, you are countercultural in most of that island, both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Whereas if you are an A type person in America, we build statues for you. And so that's really what it comes down to. Anytime you want to prioritize yourself, you are being countercultural, and that is why you feel guilty and wrong. This is not going to be solved by bubble baths. This is not going to be solved by a night at the opera. This is not going to be solved by a date night. This is going to be solved by fundamentally reassessing what it means to be human. And that means that you have to understand that you are a good person regardless of your work ethic, that you cannot do any of this alone, and that your rest has to come at least every 7 days. And so if we don't rewrite those three things the Puritans gave us, we're just going to keep getting worse.
It's so fascinating when you lay history on top of, you know, what's happening today in America and why we're feeling so exhausted. You're absolutely right. I think where this comes to a head is where you have these international companies that have employees both in the United States and in other countries that have a very different philosophy. And, you know, one company that I was CFO for in New York City, we had an office in Amsterdam. And when those guys went on vacation, that was it. Like, you never heard from them. And he literally said, if you call me while on vacation, I'm not going to answer, or I'm going to hang up the phone on you, because you have no right to call me while I'm on vacation. Yep. But yet everybody in the US office in New York City, like, this is like totally the norm. If I have a question on you're on vacation, I'm calling you because I need an answer now. The fact that you're on vacation, well, okay. So what?
Yeah, as a leader, we refuse to let any of our employees answer the phone on vacation.
Yeah.
Like, I always, or after hours, to be honest. If I find out that you're checking your email when you have insomnia at midnight, I'm going to be mad. Because the way that my brother and I always say it is that there are only two people in this building who are paid enough money to be stressed out after hours. And it is both of us have the last name Nielsen. Right. If your last name is not Nielsen and you feel the need to do that, then we have not done our job.
Right.
And we need to have a different conversation. But part of that is because we both lived outside the United States. We both inherited a company from a father who put himself through 5 different cardiac events due to stress and the myth that he had to do it all on his own. And we're looking at each other going, we're going to be different. We have to be different. We have to be different. He's got a daughter to live for that he is always thinking of her. I have a lot of things to do on that bucket list that do not include having a cardiac arrest at 45. So but the fundamental truth, I think, is that the self-care industrial complex wants you to believe that doing a cleanse and having a bubble bath is going to get you there. And those things are really great. Yeah. Those things are really, really great and important and celebratory and restful and all of that. But fundamentally at your core, it's not going to work if you still feel guilty when you get out of the bath that you wasted that time.
Mm-hmm. Good for you for recognizing what things needed to change and what things needed to stay. You're putting your own spin on it. And I think it's a healthier spin. I think ultimately.
We hope so.
Yeah, I think so.
A lot of physicians agree with us. So that's really helpful.
Yeah. Physicians across the country are standing up and applauding on the decisions that you're making. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. I've really loved this conversation, I have to tell you. So this has been a lot of fun for me. I know you're in the Philly area. I'm going to be in the Philly area in about 2 weeks. Okay. My wife, she's from that area. And so we get back there usually once every 6 months or so. And we do love good food here at Fraternity Foodie. So I need to understand, what is your favorite restaurant in Philly? Because I'm going to go and check out that restaurant in 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. My favorite restaurant hands down in the whole city is called Laurel.
Okay.
And it's a tasting menu that is done entirely seasonally. Like, you don't order anything. You just sit down and they bring you the food, which I adore. And it is owned and operated by one of the winners of Top Chef, actually. His name is Nicholas Elmy. So the restaurant's called Laurel. It's on Passyunk Avenue down in South Philly. So that's like higher dining, that's like fine dining stuff, but you won't find a better meal in the city for my money. The kind of like, more you can walk in without a reservation kind of thing is a mini chain just in the Northeast called Founding Farmers. And that's another one that's all farm to table, local ingredients, really sourced, that I think are really important. So both of those are ones that I'd recommend. But honestly, Philly is this like subtle foodie city where no one talks about us. We have a lot of good eats around here.
Oh my God.
Some of the best seafood, like really, really, really great. Really great Italian, obviously. But yeah, really great food around here. Yeah.
I can't wait to get there. There are certain foods that I can only get in the Northeast. I live in Nashville, so we don't have many of them. And so I'm really looking forward to eating my way through Philadelphia. I promise you that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to Nashville many times. I have a special place in my heart for Nash Vegas. It's a great little city, but I went to undergraduate in Kentucky. And when I was living down there, my mother would mail me food.
Yeah, there's certain foods that you just can't get in the South. It just doesn't exist, The South has their own good stuff. There's barbecue and there's other things.
I miss proper catfish and collards.
Oh, you're talking good stuff. Well, this has been a lot of fun. All right, so if our listeners, if they want to book you to speak on their college campus, maybe they want to get connected with Abbey Research, where's the best place for them to go and to connect with you after listening to the show?
First of all, we would love to come to your college campus. We are huge fans of college campuses and would love to serve you however we can. The best way to do it is honestly my email, which I am sure that Michael will put in the show notes. Abbey is spelled Abbey, and we are at Abbey Research on like every single social. So except for TikTok, because it scares us. But we're there on Instagram, we're there on YouTube, we're there on Twitter, Facebook, on LinkedIn, the whole nine. Wherever you encounter great ideas, we are there.
I love it. So it's ABBEY Research at Abbey Research. Go and check them out on social media. And you should get over that whole TikTok thing. I'm just saying, this is the #1 most downloaded app on the planet. So at some point, you're going to have to dive in, and you can do all of it without dancing. I promise.
I don't, Michael. I'll learn Instagram Reels. I'll tell you that. And if I get good at Reels, I'll hop over to TikTok. I'll give you that.
All right. Check out the @Greek University account on TikTok. You'll get a bunch of ideas on how a business can run an effective TikTok account. We're up now. We just started the account, very recently. It's not like we've been doing this for years or anything, but like in a very short amount of time, I'm talking like 2 months, we have 4,000 followers and we're growing. So, it's one of those things that, the traffic is there. So we figure why not give it a shot? And I think the days of having to dance on there in order to get followers is pretty much over. So that's good. That's the good news.
Good. Because I don't dance without choreography. So yeah.
Oh, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed the time here, Kristen. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for educating us. I thought this was fascinating. Hopefully everyone's going to go check out your TED Talk as well on how tolerance flattens diversity, because I think that's another really important topic that we could go on for hours. So thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It has been an utter joy. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please like it and share it with other college students, other people that would be interested in what Kristen has to talk about in terms of diversity and everything else that we've discussed here today. And we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Thanks so much. Bye for now.